he gives you a title and says, you must speak on this. So here was my title, The Future of Beekeeping, Honey Trade, Honey Adulteration, and the Beauty of Our Craft. No. So what I did, okay, it's on. It looks like it's on. Just plug in the remote. Okay, so what we did is we just scratched out certain parts. And I didn't know in advance, just to shorten it a bit. So I won't talk much about the future of beekeeping, nor about the actual trade of honey. I will cover honey adulteration, and I snuck in a little bit about exotic pests, because we've heard quite a bit about exotic pests. And I'd like to really close just with the beauty, the beauty that is beekeeping. So with that, I'll start. But before I go very far, you heard a very excellent description of why this school is named after Ludwig Armbruster. And I just want to kind of reiterate that. We have to, I love this, this quote about the future needs origins. We can't forget the past. And in fact, we need to build on what we've learned from the past. This idea that he was retired in 34 because he wouldn't sign a document because he was helping beekeepers in the Middle East, some of which were Palestinian and some of which were of Jewish origin. And so had these people that he was trying to help, and he wouldn't sign a single document, and of course they kicked him out. So anyway, let's don't forget the past. I'm back to my circles and 3 Ps or 4 Ps or whatever. I am going to touch on honey adulteration. It impacts all of our bottom line. We've heard a lot about pesticides. We haven't heard enough at this meeting, in my opinion, about nutrition. Bees really need diverse forage. Diverse forage meaning diverse pollen from a wide variety of plants. If they have that, they can deal with a lot else. But these certainly are 3 things that are affecting our industry. So the outline, quickly talk about how humans have used bees, honey fraud, global trade and fear, and then close with the joy of beekeeping. Humans started out hunting and gathering from bees. And they did that because, you know, there's this rich resource. If you can imagine out in nature, you're gathering food and you run across something like a beehive and you can get this sweet material and they recognize the wax could be burned and stuff. So they've been honey hunting for a long time. And you'll see in a minute, this is the giant honeybee, Apis dorsata. And you'll see a picture of, they're still honey hunting for those bees today. So it still goes on. It's still a way of managing bees, if you will, or working with bees. So again, we went from hunting and gathering to starting to take ownership. We started to pull hives together into apiaries. What did that do for us? Well, if you look at these clay pots from Egypt, you see they're all crowded together, and we still do that today. We put bees in very tight confinement, and that helps with disease spread. So we've gone from bees in nature that are spread out, no more than 1 or 2 hives per hectare, to bringing them into a closed environment, or for our own convenience, into an apiary setting, and that helps in disease transmission. It's practical, and it cuts down on the driving to get to our apiary, so it's a good thing. We don't spread them out all over the... and then going from very rustic beekeeping, where you just steal the comb and there's no... The single biggest advance, more or less, is the movable frame. It allowed us to do inspections and to look for disease. But if you visited the trade show part, and you've heard some of the other talks, we're doing all kinds of advances with different technologies into beekeeping. But beekeeping, to me, is still an art, and you still need to work within the colony and learn to recognize the signs and symbols and things that the bees are doing. But we do need to take advantage of technology. If you saw the Bashkortostan, the Ufa, Russia video, the guy was climbing the tree to rob it. He had some kind of monitoring device up on the side of the tree. It was amazing. I don't know exactly what the monitoring device was, but he was monitoring his wild hive in the tree. And this is just an example of honey hunting that still goes on today. So this is Apis dorsata, and people go and they suit up a bit. They climb these cliffs. It's a single large comb, and they harvest part of it. They harvest honey and brood from these hives. So many parts of the world, actually, bees are still really wild, and yet people interact with them and harvest them. In most of the other parts of the world, we think of managing bees. We think of going after honey. So we're working to harvest the honey, sell it at local markets. This is my son, Kevin, again, my salesperson. He's a better salesperson than I am. But I'm going to transition here in a minute, I think. As we produce more and more honey, and it's moved around the globe, it's opened up this market for fraud. So the consumer, the general consumer, thinks of honey as a pure product from nature. And we're in a real delicate balance right now of talking about honey fraud and bringing that to their attention without scaring away the market. The expression is a double-edged sword. It's good and it's bad. It cuts both ways. Yeah. We have to switch to French. Do we have a French interpreter? No, we don't need to switch to French. This is from my colleague, one of our colleagues in Apimundia, Etienne Brunel. And he works at Carey, the Carey Institute in Belgium. And it's the adulteration of honey and wax. I won't talk about wax. But I borrowed these slides from him just to talk about the magnitude of the honey adulteration problem. You don't need to look at all these numbers. Look at this pie chart. China accounts for almost 30% of the world's market in honey. The EU actually is, I think that's 13%. So EU produces a lot of honey. Turkey, as we know, is a large producer. USA, we produce 4%. We're one of the major buyers. We import a lot of honey. The Ukraine is on the map as well, and I think of Argentina and Brazil and Mexico and the Ukraine. Some of these are big players in the international honey market. So it is a big industry, the trade of honey globally. So what's happened over time? This is from 1960 to 2017. The one line that kind of stands out there is East Asia, and this is the production by region in tons, production by region. So East Asia, the production of honey has gone higher and higher. They may have gotten really, really good at beekeeping. I don't know. This next graph is the summary of what we know is happening in the honey market. So honey from Asia has gone through the roof. The production, actually it showed that was Asia and Ukraine together, or this is Asia and Ukraine together. Asia and Ukraine, and this is the line of the number of managed colonies. So from 2007 to 2014, the number of managed colonies went up by 13%. And yet the exportation of honey went up almost 200%. So they all signed up for the Armbruster school. Yeah, that's it. Because it's online, right? So they get good information. In the U.S., I would say we reinvigorated our extension service. So we got it back out. We met with beekeepers, and they produced more honey. It's impossible to have only a 13% increase in the number of colonies and get 200% increase in exports. It's impossible. What's happening is some transshipment. Things are moved between countries and it's not labeled properly. But the bigger thing is the addition of syrups. rice syrups. So you create more honey-like substances. One way to get around some of this would be if some of these countries want to produce this type of product, we just get the name honey off of it and call it, something else. Call it something else. It's honey-like, but reserve the name honey. So we need better labeling. But anyway, this is the crux of the problem. Honey fraud is a big issue. It's the third most leading product that is adulterated around the globe. And this is this double-edged sword I was talking about. When the consumer, this is CBS News in the US, when the consumer hears that there's honey fraud, he or she maybe gets scared and doesn't buy the product. We want to ensure them, and you can do that locally by talking to your consumer and saying, if it has Bavaria stamped on it, or if it has, wherever, Malta stamped on it, it's pure honey. So we can combat that locally a bit, and we're working as Apimundia on the larger scale, trying to combat it globally. Yeah, so how do we fight that? It's driven by greed. We have this statement on honey fraud, which outlines some of the problems and some of the solutions. You as an individual can work to educate your consumers, and that will grow. And we do need to improve the testing. The best honey testing labs in the world are right here in Germany. So everyone refers to the laboratories in Germany as being the world standard. So you're in a good spot in that thing. And then just encourage everyone to buy locally produced honey. All right, I'll move through this quickly, but unfortunately, you asked me to talk about the future of beekeeping. I think the future involves change or dealing with new pests. We heard from Sammy Ramsey, about Tropilelaps mite. This is Dennis Anderson from Australia, and he brought Varroa to the world. No, he didn't bring Varroa to the world, but anyway, he's done a lot of good work on Varroa. And small hive beetle continues to spread. This is a quote from Winston Churchill. Yeah, we have nothing to fear but global trade. Movement around the globe is not going to stop. And what's happening is there's even more pests. I mean, Europe has its own hornet that's came into France, moving broadly. We just got in North America the larger version. It's called Mandarina. It's as big as your finger, and it's in Washington State and British Columbia. So these things are going to continue to move. And actually, we can play a role in trying to limit it, but we can also play a role in being the sentinels. We're out there in our apiary every day, and if you notice something different, something unusual that you've never seen, talk to somebody. I saw a small hive beetle in Florida about 6 to 8 months before it was ever reported, and I didn't know what it was. I was down there, I'm like, because it was on no one's radar, but there were small hive beetles in the colonies. I'm like, why are all these beetles in these colonies? And then we became aware. So awareness and education. Take a good beekeeping school. Learn about these things and learn to recognize them. Okay. Yeah, so we manage this same bee species from cold northern climates all the way into the tropics. And it has huge diversity in the way it behaves and stuff. But we can take advantage of that and breed from things that are locally adapted. And this is a picture I'm supposed to show. So everybody pick out their favorite queen bee or their favorite color. There's a lot of diversity here, and we should all be proud of our own bees and work with those bees that work for us. There's not going to be the bee. Unfortunately, Carnica is not going to capture the world. Buckfast is not going to capture the world. Different bees work well in different contexts. And this is another part, to me, the joy in beekeeping is the long, long discussions over the best type of hive. I mean, there's every imaginable like scenario, like, oh no, I want to use a Wari hive, or I want to use a Kenya top bar, and you know, maybe I'm infatuated with very rustic hives. So try different things. Get something that works for you. But to me, part of the joy in beekeeping is the flexibility. Bees are very adaptable, and we can learn to work with them and work with them in different types and different scenarios. This is my pic. This is me in an apiary harvesting honey. And to me, this is the equivalent photo of, did you see the young girl lay down on the hives in the, I think that was the UFA. So she laid down and she was absorbing the things from the hive, the odors and the sounds. This is what I get when I go into an apiary. As you open the box, you hopefully get a nice floral smell and the brood smell, hopefully not American foul brood smell. But you get this beautiful smell. Maybe it's aster honey in the fall, kind of pungent. But the smell of the honey, the smell of the brood, to me, this is the real joy. If you get excited by seeing very white wax coming up on the tops of your combs, you know you're a beekeeper. I mean, when you see that white wax and they're starting to cap over honey. So you're a beekeeper, you're an environmentalist, you're whatever. We have to take advantage of the fact that right now, the public sees bees in a very, very positive light. I guess I heard about Berlin. There's way too many beekeepers in Berlin, right? I mean, we got to get rid of some of the beekeepers, but no, or the bees. The public looks at bees as a symbol for the environment. And we need to work together to magnify that message and to our own advantage. So we learn from what they're doing in nature. This is a wild hive, kind of adapt it for our own uses in our own operations, but do a better job of, we say, broadening the tent, getting involved with other groups that are also setting out to protect the environment, which is the environment we need to manage our bees in. So this is, by chance, this is Zermatt. And you were saying you're next year you're going somewhere near this, right? Huh? Not on that. Yeah, no, not that high. No, so I just wanted to, before I move on, think a minute about what you really enjoy out of beekeeping. Just take a minute and reflect on that. I mean, for me, it's the actual managing of the bees and learning from their behavior. So bee problems are not going to go away, but we as beekeepers need to work and kind of help be part of the solution, especially as it involves land use and partnering with farmers and things like that. We know that global trade is not going to end. I do think we are in a good position to recognize things before they become problematic. And I'm a proponent of working with locally adapted stock. But lastly, just kind of respect the bees and enjoy the craft, enjoy the art of beekeeping. We do need to bring in technology, but there's nothing like actually being in the colony for me. So think about this nice society. A single beehive is this beautiful, complex society. And it functions very well. And I think what we need to do is learn a little more from the bee society. So the bees cooperate, right? How many, when beekeepers associations start to form, how often is it that we're fighting each other for various reasons? So I came up with another, this is the 4 C's. We need to work a little more on cooperation. Even if you disagree, even if you have 3 organizations, begin to coordinate your response, coordinate your fight, collaborate a bit. We're very pleased as Apimundia to be here, to be a part, and we appreciate the financial support that you're providing. So collaboration and cooperation. And then last, this is what you keep coming up. This is At the end of every talk, he comes up and asks, what are you going to do today? What's the concrete action? So take and turn whatever you're doing, whatever area you're working in, turn it into some kind of concrete action. Turn it into something that you're going to do. And so we would welcome a bid from Germany in a few years. And hopefully, we can tell you about the process, and you can put in a really good bid and outbid, say, France, for instance. Who knows who will be bidding then? But yeah, we would welcome that. So anyway, with that, I would invite you, as Ricardo did, we moved UFA Russia to 2022. We had to move it a year. We go to Santiago, Chile in 23, and then we'll have bids from Europe for 2025. So if you can't make one of these meetings, look forward to seeing you in Europe in a few years. So with that, I'm going to close it, and I thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here.